Hello, everybody. My guest today is Ayana Ross, the winner of the 2021 Bennett Prize for Women Figurative Realist Painters. Trained as a fashion designer, Ross shifted gears after receiving a master's degree in liberal arts from the University of North Carolina in Greensboro, moving away from her job as a high school art teacher and deciding to become a full-time fine art painter. After deciding on a career as a painter, she returned to school and received her MA in painting from the Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia. In 2021, she was chosen from among almost 700 women to become the winner of the second Bennett Prize for Women Figurative Realist Painters. Her work, which combines traditional oil painting with elaborate patterns and decorative designs, in her words, seeks to depict the divine in everyday moments. Paintings by Ayana are included in private collections around the world, including that of mega collector Jorge Perez of Miami, as well as collections in the Netherlands, Israel, and elsewhere. Her work is also included in the Bennett collection. Her solo exhibition, The Lessons I Leave You, created following her receipt of the Bennett Prize, will open at the Muskegon Museum of Art in Michigan on May 18th of this year. Ayana Ross, welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. And tell us how you are. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I am a little, I would say tired, but it's it's the good type of tired where, I've been working constantly. So I'm very proud of my progress, but I'm doing well overall.
Good. And one would get the impression that since your Bennett Prize win in 2021, you've been a pretty busy girl. Is that a fair way to look at it?
That is accurate. That is accurate. It has definitely been a journey. From It's been more than I could have ever imagined. But yes, I've been very busy.
Great, great. So you won the Bennett Prize in May of 2021. What have you been doing? Busy is a pretty broad idea. What have you been doing in the intervening time? What's up?
So, one to start off, after winning, I had some pieces intentionally left in the studio. That May, when I came back, I had something to work on. So initially, I just wanted to work through the pieces that were already kind of in process. And from there, I gave myself time to explore and experiment. So I was fortunate enough to be invited to a couple of openings and going to a couple of fairs and seeing, what is out there in the art world and getting the lay of the land. I've had the privilege of meeting with a lot of collectors and curators and, engaging in meaningful discussion. So that all informed my understanding of the journey that I was embarking upon. And yeah, and then after that, I think I spent about 6 months experimenting and trying new things. And yeah, and then I got to work on at the scale that I wanted, that I was interested in creating. And that's both speaking to size and scope of the work that I'm doing. So yeah,
the work got bigger. The work got bigger.
The work got bigger, yes. I think I started incorporating more layering of content in the work. Started doing a little bit more research, so that each piece that I create has its own set of stories that are kind of interwoven into them. So yeah.
So the relationship between you and the work has changed since your days as a high school art teacher, you think?
I do. I think having the ability to spend more time in the studio and spend more time with my paintings, and giving myself the freedom to listen to the direction that each piece wants to go in. And it took me a while to kind of get into a rhythm of how I work. Um, I no longer have the audacity to say that this is just going to take me X amount of weeks to finish. Because I know sometimes I'll have an idea, and I usually don't start till I've done at least 3 sketches and digital renderings. But once I have an idea, once I get my figures on the surface, there's still room for the work to tell me the direction it's going in. And sometimes it comes right away, and sometimes it doesn't. So I've learned to listen more and be guided more. And I definitely respect the art and the process, because I see it as something that's coming through me, not of me. And so yeah.
How about subject matter? Has subject matter changed for you over the course of time?
I don't know if it's changed. I think it's been refined, probably, is a better way to put it. Subjects have been refined and probably just more layered. Um, I think this probably speaks to a lot of my interest in reading and following stories around the world. I look for connections and parallels, uh, and specifically in the work that I have going right now, a lot of parallels are related to biblical narratives. Um, as I've been studying Henry Tanner's work. So those parallels help me to build that layering. So the subject matter is consistent, I think, with what I've always done. It's just more refined, a little bit more layering, and through that somehow a little bit broader reaching, perhaps. So
Well, you're a big fan of Henry Osawa Tanner's work. Is he one of your principal inspirations?
for this particular body of work that I'm in the midst of, yes, I would say so. And I've always been a huge Henry Tanner fan, but it was only maybe last year, a little bit before then, where I made the connections of like what specifically draws me to his work, his use of light, which is something that I gravitate towards. Um, the biblical stories that are reflected, which I gravitate towards. I was doing it more so in a way of like kind of taking these contemporary figures and thinking about um, those Bible stories that we learn from childhood. And so once I kind of hooked in that connection, it all became so clear. It's like, oh, of course. And then I really began to lean into everything that his work could teach me, so, or is teaching me.
And beyond Tanner, do you have other sources of inspiration that you call on in your work or that you admire sufficiently to emulate?
Um, yes, and I guess it just varies from piece to piece. I look a lot at Bo Bartlett's work because I love the way that he captures these everyday figures and these everyday moments, and just it almost becomes romanticized in the way that he depicts them. And that's something, and I credit him with kind of giving me the license to take my environment, let my roots feed my crown, and and use that as inspiration for the images that I'm painting. But in terms of like for all of the pieces collectively, I look a lot to memories, things that I recall from my childhood, things I've stories that I've heard passed along. If there's a phrase that gets stuck in my head and I have to investigate it further to see where that takes me, that might be the inspiration for something. So it comes from a number of different sources.
Well, Bull Bartlett's a heck of a painter. There's
That's it.
no question about that. I gather you're spending more time in the studio now than you were before you won the Bennett Prize. Has that changed the way you think about your career or you think about your trajectory as a painter?
In my mind, I have to divide it up, So there's that administrative work that has to be done that really does help me to move in the direction I want to move in. The studio time is critical, crucial, necessary. And that is where the bulk of my time is spent, but it's not where all of my time is spent. So I divide my weekdays up and even within those days, the hours up to allow me to do a bit of both based on, the demands of the day. And so I feel like I have to split my brain in different compartments to be able to function. But for sure, having more time to be in those spaces is important and has been necessary for me to get to where I am and certainly to continue to move forward.
For sure. Yeah, right. Now, when you won the Bennett Prize, one of the things you said was that you were going to acquire a dedicated studio space, which I believe you have done. What's it like to spend more time in a dedicated studio? And what are your thoughts about it? Is it lonely? Is it clarifying? How does being in a studio space of your own, as opposed to the back bedroom, so to say?
Well, as I always say, I am a high functioning introvert. So being alone is never lonely. That is how I recharge.
Good for you.
And so I have been very fortunate to have two spaces that I've been working out of just in different ways. So my home studio space that we built out is my primary space where I create. I love that I was able to kind of determine the lighting and it's just, I love the privacy of it. It's mine. It's almost like the brain of it all. I would say the heart of it all, actually. And then my other space, which I use more so, is almost like a showroom sort of space, has been incredible. That was a great risk that I took in investing in a studio space in Atlanta because it has allowed me to have a place for when curators or collectors are in the area, there's a place for them to come and see the work. And it has certainly been a part of me having a number of opportunities over the past couple of years. So no, it's not lonely. I love working in the studio and having that time, so I can really kind of get into my head.
Good for you. One of the premises upon which Dr. Schmidt and I founded the Bennett Prize was the notion that women artists have not been fully embraced by big art, which we would define as museums, galleries, auction houses, and the like. With that in mind, we established the prize to propel the careers of women figurative realist painters. Now that you're almost 2 years beyond or into your win of the Bennett Prize, do you think it's helped propel your career? And if so, how or in what way?
Definitely. I mean, it absolutely has. I think the biggest impact is exactly as was intended, it has allowed me to have access to some of those big art spaces, and to at least begin the process of moving in that direction of by building relationships and kind of getting a better understanding of the lay of the land, if you will. But that exposure has been tremendous, especially for someone like me, who I live in a small town, although I have been able to uh, build broader connections. And because I have a family, I just, it's some things that I have not been able to do, go on a residency away somewhere for a year
Yeah.
or 6 months, So I think it definitely has been an extraordinary opportunity. And it really helped me to understand the importance of opportunities like that. Not only is there a lack of representation for women of color, for uh, so many groups that are oftentimes overlooked. It's also that some things aren't designed to be to the benefit of some of those groups. So, like I mentioned, being a parent, there are some things that I just would not have been able to do, that would have maybe taken me into some of those spaces. But I think that all of our stories are important. And by losing those groups in the presence of those individuals, we lose stories and we lose insight. And so I think that the prize and it giving opportunities to people like myself is extraordinary.
Do you think your practice, it's one thing to go into a high school and teach art and then come home and try to work as a painter at night. It's another thing to wake up in the morning, get your kids off to school and say, I've got all of today to be an artist, whatever face I put on that. I'm interested how that transition worked for you, how you go from having a full-time job and a part-time artist function to being a full-time artist. And I'm interested in your reflection on it, because I think many of the women who are interested in the Bennett Prize are trying to figure out how to make a transition that's similar to that.
Yes, for sure. So let me start by saying that it was something I'd wanted to do for a number of years. But again, my circumstance being what it is, it was not a risk that I could take without quite a bit of cushion around me. And I'm actually somewhat risk averse. But I do believe in taking the next right risk. And I remember specifically, I think it was the February before I won the prize. I was really at the point where this is my last year teaching. So we had our contracts to renew that came in the email, and I told my husband, I said, I don't think I'm going to renew my contract this year.
And he said, "Woman, are you crazy?"
Well, and mind you, I'd been building up the business to try to get to that point. And he said to me, so I think you're almost there, but not yet. Not yet. I think you're almost there. And, I applaud him because I know he believes in me. But yeah, so that was the sentiment. But having won the prize, then I knew at that point it was the time I can take that next right risk. Making the transition itself, though, it was wonderful and hard because, I believe that, first of all, I admire every artist who was bold enough from an early age to say, this is what I'm doing, and they just stuck with it. I applaud those people. That wasn't my story. I didn't have that that ability, but I respect it, and I respect it even more so now. And I do believe that no one gets to skip out on the hard part, regardless when you get in. You don't get to skip the hard part. So what started for me was how it progressed for me was I knew what my sales were typically, and I had to maintain that, right? Um, and I knew what some of my big audacious goals were, such as establishing a studio in Atlanta. And so I kind of had to sit down and decide, hey, how am I using the resources from the prize to make these things happen and at the same time still meet my goal. So the first year I was really busy in just trying to juggle it and balance it. I did not change my work schedule. When I was teaching, I got up really early to paint before I went to work. I just got up really early and then just kept painting. That was the only difference.
Good for you.
But it took about a year before I got off of the educator's cycle of this time of year, I would be doing X, Y, Z. It would be, I'm just kind of still on the teacher's calendar in my head. And I think by year 2, I really began to embrace my joy of being a full-time artist. I think the first year, not only was I on that calendar, I felt like a little bit of guilt, almost like, how do I get to be this happy? How do I get to have exactly what I wanted? So I had to work through that. And by year 2, yeah, I just felt joy, and I was able to work in that joy. Now, the hard part was you're no longer on the monthly scheduled payment plan, teaching. So getting on the cycle of how things flow in the art world, and you may plant seeds in this month and you may not see harvest until these months, that sort of thing. So sure. It's been, I think for anyone that's interested in doing it, for me, it's been incredible, but you do have to be prepared for the highs and the lows and have a solid plan of, how you're going to generate income and continue to market yourself and producing the work. Because it's a lot you have to juggle. It's a lot of hats that I have to wear. And I've been fortunate enough to connect with people who have been doing this for a while, who've given me some insight. And it's just, the art community is incredible. I will say that, but it's been a journey.
Oh, I'm sure that's true. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking of the early days when I had retired from my day job, and you go through this period where you kind of puzzle over how to shape your day. So, I tried to do some of the things you did. I think some people retire and then they try to act like they're on a weekend schedule 7 days a week where they sleep in and this sort of thing. And I'm not sure that's a healthy way to proceed. Keeping some structure in your life, because let's face it, when you go from being a full-time teacher and a part-time artist to a full-time artist and a full-time artist, you have to put some shape around that, or everything kind of veers out of control. It goes crazy in a way that becomes very unmanageable, and for, I think, a lot of us, unsettling to not have the structure of a job where you have to be somewhere at a specific time and you have to deliver a certain product, whatever your job is. You have to teach those kids seated at the desks how to draw. And so it's interesting to me that I think there's parallels to that. And I think many women that are interested in the Bennett Prize, they are usually full-time something else and right. Part-time artists. And that's a very, that transition has to be managed very, very thoughtfully by the person who's undertaking it. It's
Right.
tricky. It's tricky. So, as you look back on the last year and a half, are there things you wish you'd done differently or done more or less of as you think about how you spent your time?
Well, I give myself a lot of grace in that area. I think that anything that I did that I maybe shouldn't have done, I had to do it to know it.
Yeah,
It's just
sure.
it's how it goes. You just have to make your own mistakes in it. Um, but I would say one thing I do wish I did a little bit more of, and I think this just is most people, and it comes with age, is listen to my gut a little bit more. Um, Early in the process, because there are some things that I said no to, I maybe should have said yes to, or vice versa. I said yes to some things that I really wish I said no to. So being okay with following your gut. And I think, and this is not something I did not do. This is something I did do. I'm actually proud of myself. I gave myself, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, I'm gonna try it, but if it doesn't work out, oh well, and I think that I did my best to try to make the most of this opportunity. And so if I made any mistakes and choices in that, then that's okay. I will say, and this is a little embarrassing, one mistake I did make. It's a painting I did. I had a whole concept behind it. And in the painting, I wanted to have a particular wig. My daughter modeled for me, and it was this purple wig. And I spent about $400 on that wig, and I regret it. I regret it. But if that's my biggest regret, then I'm okay.
Well, you think you can repurpose the wig?
Oh, that wig is going to be used for something. I don't know what, when, where, how. It's going to be used for something.
I'm glad. Sounds like great fun. Uh, well, the purple wig sounds like it deserves a book. You could write a short story around. This sounds like O. Henry, the purple wig. It sounds like it'd make a great short story.
Yeah, lessons from the purple wig.
Yeah. So in the wake of the winning of the prize, do you think you had some additional acceptance come to your work as a result of it? Did the prize change the way in which you were perceived or your work was accepted or understood?
I think so. I think first and foremost, the change in perception was within me, and understanding that there are others that see my work as being as serious and significant as I do.
Mhm.
And that bit of confidence um, allowed me to really speak about it and show it more in a different way. And so I think that's first and foremost. Outside of that, I think even just, the kind of curiosity of like, what is she doing? Who is this person? And getting the opportunity to share my work with people, especially in spaces where I was able to talk a little bit more about the stories behind the work, has been extremely beneficial. And I know that's a direct relationship with the prize. I'm thinking about actually a talk that I was able to do at the Bo Bartlett Center when the Rising Voices 2 show was there. So
Just recently, in fact,
yeah,
within the last six
like
months, I think. Yeah.
September, October, I think.
Yeah, right.
Um, so having that opportunity and also getting that direct feedback from people who have messaged me or even spoke to me at events and said how it resonates with them has been incredible. Because sometimes you do a thing and you don't realize how much impact what you're doing can have on other people. So that's been a tremendous blessing.
Yeah, amen. And your transition to full-time artist as opposed to teacher and artist, how's it affected your family?
Um, Not that much. They still want me to drop them off at their friend's house and ask me what's for dinner. I mean, everything's the same. No, my family's always been incredibly supportive. And I think that they saw me in places and spaces before I had the courage to see myself there. And so that's been great. But yeah, they're over me, especially the kids. They're like, my daughter said to me, because I oftentimes have to move art from the home studio to Atlanta. So we'll have the whole van situation. Everybody's loading the art up. And whenever that happens, my daughter said to me, always forget you're an artist. Don't know
So,
what you think I'm doing. But or when they have an opportunity to go to an event with me, or see other people's reaction, I think that's when it resonates. But especially the young people, they're so caught up in their own worlds as they're preparing for college and things.
so do any of your children, you have three, do any of them aspire to be artists, you think?
I actually have four.
I misspoke.
Yeah.
Four, that's right.
Yep, right.
Okay, so
Um,
that doesn't include your husband. So
no,
you have five children.
no, it doesn't include him. I don't know. I think my eldest, well, first of all of them are creatives in some capacity. The oldest two and the youngest especially like to draw, but none of them really speak about having a career as an artist other than my oldest or eldest. She is exploring things like medical illustration.
Mm,
She's interested in doing art in some capacity. I think she's still trying to decide whether she wants it to be her career or her something she just does that's just for her on the side. So she's still making those decisions.
sure. Sure. Well, you've got a number of children that are in high school or headed to college, don't you? You have four, and so you've probably got a lot of action right now as a parent.
Yes. Yes. So one is heading off to college in the fall. So she's making some final decisions there. And then the second oldest is preparing for her senior year. So it'll be pretty back to back. Now, once the first two are gone, who knows where life will take us.
Well, one of the things that those of us who've been through the transition from a house full of kids to no kids at all will tell you is that that transition happens very abruptly. I mean, it seems like it's endless. And then one day you say goodbye to the last kid, and you suddenly look around and you say, this place is silent. It's empty. Right. This is terrible. This is terrible. Actually, there was an ad, and I'm trying to remember who the ad, what company the ad was for, but it shows the parents putting the suitcases in the trunk, and the kid gets behind the wheel, and he's waving out and then the car goes up over the hill, and as soon as the car disappears, the parents are high-fiving each other going, yes, yes, yes. I hope you have an empty nest like that. I hope is what you experience.
Yeah, I'm a bit excited. I am.
It's
It's
Good.
bittersweet, but it's mostly sweet.
So where as you think about the future, where do you see your career from here? Looking at the platform that you're standing on today, where do you see your career head? What do you think you're gonna face up ahead now? Because you're in a different place, I think, than you were when you were a high school teacher. So now that you've had a couple of years of full-time professional art practice under your belt, what do you think the future looks like, or maybe what do you hope it looks like?
Well, I hope it looks like more opportunities in, as you define it, the big art world.
Big art, you
Um,
bet.
that's what I'm hoping for. Um, so I would love over the next couple of years to have um, more shows and opportunities and visibility in major cities like New York and LA. I would love that. I would love to have more museum and public um, collection acquisitions. I would love to have um, and more opportunities to engage and talk about the work that I'm doing. Um, yeah, more shows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How about the work? What do you think? What happens to the work as you plug along here? Do you see, or are you contemplating some additional experimentation with your work, or perhaps stylistic or subject matter variations?
Well, I'm not so bold as to say yay or nay, um, because I believe in allowing it to lead me where we're gonna go. But I do think I'm in a nice space right now where, having done some of the experiments that I did early on and being in the depths of particularly the work that I did for the Bennett Prize, having gotten a great deal of inspiration working in that vein, I have quite a few pieces already, either that I've started or that I'm planning to do that are kind of similar and along those same lines. So I I feel pretty comfortable where I am right now. Um, I think the work still challenges me in a lot of ways. And so as long as I have that and I have the vision um, for other pieces kind of in store, I feel good about where I am. And I can't say what will or won't come down the line, but for right now, I think I'm pretty confident in I'm getting my footing, I should say. Like I've gotten a system down almost to a T, and I've gotten a process down that I'm starting to really um, get in the flow with. So I feel confident about those things.
That's great. And as you think about the future, do you think that your subject matter is going to evolve in a way that might be different from what you're doing now? Or are you going to continue to work in the same vein? Any thoughts there?
Um, I think similar to the way I was describing the content before, I think that at its core, subject is still there and probably will, at least at the core, have that same footing. But I'm constantly working on um, being a little bit more concise in what I want to say and allowing for the layering of and the parallels that I pull from different sources, allowing for that to have room to stick together in the work. So I think again, I'm starting to feel I'm not so comfortable that I'm thinking I need a challenge, but I'm starting to get my footing with what I am doing. So I feel pretty confident with that, but I will always um, allow the art to lead me in the direction that I need to go and listen to that. And I think as long as I do that, I'm doing the work I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, clearly, I was talking about you the other day to somebody, and they were inquiring about your work, and I said, well, this work is about people and relationships and memories. And I think there is a certain sensitivity to both relationships and this is an odd word, but maybe the right one, historicity. When I look at your work, I always have a sense that there is a deep consideration of ancestry and origins contained deeply embedded in your work. And I hope you continue to build on that because I think it's a very powerful aspect to what you do.
I think that's very accurate, and I really do appreciate you saying that because I see that there as well. I believe strongly in learning from lessons that have been previously taught, whether directly or indirectly. I believe strongly in, um, you know, those that came before us through mistakes and through successes, kind of taking those aspects and moving forward. So I try my best to tie past to present, and it's sometimes looking at the future. So, yeah.
So you have a solo show of your the paintings created during your Bennett Prize. We call it the residency, the 2 years you received the money. And the name of that show is
Lessons I leave you.
Lessons I Leave You. Well, that for someone who thinks about time and relationships and origins, that's great. Do you want to give us a little preview, a verbal preview of Lessons I Leave You?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Actually, the title did not come until much later. I allowed myself to work through the paintings, especially when I was at the place where I was kind of doing pieces that I thought intentionally would be a good part, a good fit. And then I sat back and looked at the stories that were being told in each one, and they all have something to do with some lesson that can be passed on or is passed on from one generation to the next, or from one, in some instances, a life that was lost and a lesson we can still take from that. So I'm very excited to see all of the pieces hung together. And
so am I, by the way. So are we. Yeah, so are we.
and those lessons kind of coming out, and I look forward to even being able to talk about my interpretation of each of those lessons.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Um, let's move for a minute to advice. You're no longer an amateur. You're a professional, and you're becoming a well-respected and well-known professional. What observations or advice would you give to women who are considering making the transition that you have been through?
Um, the hardest part, and I think I said it before about it all, is the belief in yourself. The belief that, you know, the work that you're doing is important. And the confidence to put yourself out there. And I think that was what that initially was probably one of the hardest for me, is putting yourself out there. I am not someone that was ever really super confident. So I've been very fortunate to have family that has supported me. And there have been a number of times in my journey where I wanted to give up because I just felt like um, I was losing my mind at times, honestly. I really did, because it's like this art in me and I have to paint it. And at the same time, I have to do this and I have to care for family. And um, so, I spent some years trying to fit in a mold that wasn't suited for me. I really, really did. I went to school. I actually got halfway through a specialist degree in educational leadership.
My,
Um,
really?
just because, only because, even though I have two masters, I still was not able to make enough money to for my family. And I was a single mom at that time, of course. Um, so my heart goes out to teachers as well.
Hmm.
But I think that having that support around me and getting help when I needed it, because I went to counseling because I'm like, I think I'm losing my mind. I have to do this art and I'm trying my best, but I just don't feel like I'm making any headway. So having someone to talk to, and I remember my counselor said to me, she's like, have you considered putting your art in other spaces?
Yeah.
Like putting yourself out there. And I was like, no. And then once I started doing that, it was like a domino effect. So yeah, I think that's the first step, is having confidence in yourself to just try it, put it out there. And, the universe will lead you. Whether it's having the right people come along that give you good insight, or whether it's the right opportunities. And for me, it was both. My friend Maggie, I talk about this all the time, in grad school, was the one that encouraged me to submit for the Bennett Prize. And I honestly at the time thought, I don't know, Maggie. I don't know that.
Well, you and Maggie celebrated, I think, very happily celebrated your success in the Bennett Prize. I hope she took some small credit for boosting your confidence.
Yes, yes, she does. I call her my art angel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's the first step. And honestly, with each step along the way, the more I put myself out there, the more the next thing came along. You can't really gauge and say, well, this is going to happen at this point and that's going to happen at that point. All you can do is pick up a foot and put it down, and just trust that the ground will rise to meet you wherever
It's
you tread.
true. That's absolutely true. The tug and pull of a creative life is very hard to run away from, I think. Um,
Yes.
would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh,
And I think people sometimes do a great many of things, and sometimes harm to themselves, trying to um, run from that call, or, um, drown out the regret. So, yes, I think it's a very real thing. Yeah.
so, as a painter and as a woman, do you have any general advice you might offer to women painters who, from all walks of life, who are uh, laboring in obscurity and trying to find their way forward, other than be true to yourself? Do you have any other tips you might offer?
Um, being true to yourself, trusting your gut, and knowing your why were probably the most powerful things for me. Um, a part of, you know, while on the one hand, I would say to myself, my past self, that I'm doing this for the kids. I need to stay in this vein. I need to, you know, work this job that is killing me on the inside slowly for the kids. At the same time, I know that my taking the next right risk, and I put an emphasis on right, taking the next right risk probably has had a greater influence on my kids than anything. Them seeing how I pursue my happiness, and seeing what it means to work towards something that you believe deeply in. Um, to see that grit, I think is has been important. So, you know, it's interesting the stories we tell ourselves, and especially as I'm saying as a mother, a parent, and I think that that's important to be aware of that too. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is the life. So,
No, it's not.
so yeah, that would be it. And I think those things apply to whatever, whether it's art, whether it's painting, whether it's starting a business, changing a career, whatever it is that you're longing for. And I think following one's curiosity to explore um, that thing is important.
Well, I think the general sense is that whatever you do that promotes your own health and embrace of your path ultimately is healthy for everyone around you.
Great.
So if somebody is telling themselves, I can't do that because I've got to continue to do this horrible thing I hate because I need to do it to put food on the table, that's going to create a miserable environment at home, no matter how much food the kids have to eat. So I think we're always better off embracing the thing that our spirits tell us to do. You know, follow where your spiritual advice leads, and I think we end up in a better place if we do that.
Yeah, and I think one lesson that this whole journey has taught me is that it doesn't have to be abrupt. Um, for me, it might seem like it was, but it really wasn't. I mean, I wanted to transition a long time ago, but I couldn't. So I did what I could do, and I grew in the way that I could grow with those parameters. And then when the opportunity came, and I think it's Oprah and a few other people I've heard that luck is preparation meets opportunity. So
Right.
when the opportunity comes, you're kind of in a place where you've done the prep work so that you can make that transition. So I think that was another big lesson, because I used to think it had to be all or nothing, and that just wasn't the case. But eventually, all met nothing, and then I was able to choose all. So
Well, I was looking at something the other day, and there was a quote. I think it was from Thomas Hart Benton, and the quote was, "The only way to fail as an artist is to quit."
that's right.
And I thought that was sound advice for everybody who is pursuing their paths as a creative.
Yeah.
You know, we don't give the $1 billion jobs to the creatives most of the time. We give them to quants, you know, hedge fund managers or basketball stars, or you know, this sort of thing. But I think some of the most deeply satisfied people and some of the most important people to our social dialogue are the creative people who struggle in jobs that do not adequately or appropriately remunerate them. And so our goal, now we're going to enlist you in that goal as a past winner. Our goal is to continue to encourage people, women in particular, to keep up along that path and not give up. So one thing I always like to ask guests when we have interviews like this is there anything I haven't asked that you wish I had?
Oh boy. Oh, I wish I had a good answer for that. Such a great question, but I don't know that I have an answer for that.
Well, I'll come at it a different way. Is there anything you'd like to say that you have not said?
Well, one thing I will say that I have not said, and this goes back to the whole encouraging artists who perhaps are considering opportunities and moving forward, and maybe even submitting to the Bennett Prize for the next cycle. And that is, why not? Just why not? And that's something I've asked myself a lot. Why not me? Why can't I be, one of the artists that goes down in history as a well-known painter? Why not you? Why not? I think we eliminate ourselves from things before we give other people a chance to. And I think I'm over that myself. So I'm not doing that anymore. So when it comes to submitting and trying to be a part of spaces, why not? Why not give it a try? Your art is just as significant. Your story is just as important. And this is something I tell myself all the time. And it needs to be there. It needs to be a part of our history. People need to know that, these groups of people existed and this was the story that they held, and because we can all learn from it. And the more we share our stories, because I do think we need more storytellers in whatever capacity, the more we can come to understand one another, and the more we can perhaps get on the same page about building a better world for our children.
Amen. Amen. Ayana Ross, thank you for a fascinating hour. As we wrap up, let me say that the doc and I most sincerely look forward to being with you at the opening of the Bennett Prize exhibition at the Muskegon Museum of Art in May of 2023 upcoming. And I personally very much look forward to seeing you and all of your work up close and personal at that time. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest has been the well-known figurative realist artist and winner of the 2021 Bennett Prize, Ayana Ross. One more time, just a reminder on these important dates. The opening and announcement of the winner of the third Bennett Prize will be announced at the Muskegon Museum of Art in Michigan, in Muskegon on May 18th of 2023. The exhibition of the work of the 3.0 finalists and the solo exhibition of the 2021 winner, Ayana Ross, will be on view from May 19th to September 10th, 2023, and will then travel the country for 2 years with stops in Pennsylvania twice, Tennessee, New York, as well as Michigan. Again, if you're an eligible woman painter, please consider becoming a contestant for the Bennett Prize 4.0, the call for entries for which will open in the spring of 2024. The complete rules for entry and short bios and examples of the work of all of the finalists are available at www.thebennettprize.org. Thanks for listening. So long, everybody.